That dinner invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, wrapped in polite words and fake warmth, the kind that always made my stomach tighten before my mind could catch up. "We'd love to have you over. It's been too long." The message came from my cousin Lavra, the same woman who hadn't spoken to me properly in years. Unless it was to comment on how quiet my life seemed compared to everyone else's. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, already sensing something off. But a small, hopeful part of me still wanted to believe this was genuine. Maybe they wanted peace. Maybe they wanted to reconnect. Maybe, just once, I wouldn't be the punchline. I almost declined. I should have. But loneliness has a way of making bad decisions feel reasonable. So I replied yes. The house was exactly how I remembered it, large, polished and designed to impress. Everything gleamed, from the marble floors to the oversized dining table that looked more like it belonged in a luxury showroom than a family home. As I stepped inside, conversations paused for half a second, just long enough for everyone to look me over, to assess, to measure me against whatever silent standard they carried in their heads. Then the smiles returned, stretched thin and practiced. "Wow, you actually came," Lavra said, laughing lightly as if she hadn't expected me to be brave enough or foolish enough to show up. I smiled back, controlled. I'd learned that reacting only gave them what they wanted. Dinner began politely. Too politely. Questions floated around the table, but none of them were real. Still at the same job. "You living alone? Must be nice not having much responsibility." Each sentence sounded harmless on the surface, but the intent underneath was sharp. Every answer I gave seemed to invite another subtle dig, another comparison, another reminder that in their eyes, I was the one who hadn't quite made it. Then the tone shifted. Laura's husband raised his glass and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You know, it's impressive how you've managed to stay so simple. Some people chase ambition. Others just exist." Laughter followed. Not everyone joined in, but no one stopped it either. That silence hurt more than the joke itself. Someone else added, "At least you don't have to worry about money or reputation. You can't lose what you never had." That was the moment I realized this dinner was never about reconciliation. It was theater. I was the entertainment. I looked around the table, at faces I'd known my whole life, and saw something unmistakable relief. Relief that I was still beneath them. Relief that whatever success they feared, I might one day have clearly hadn't arrived. They needed me small so they could feel large. I finished my meal slowly. I thanked them for the invitation. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. That confused them more than anger ever could have. As I stood to leave, Lavra leaned close and whispered, "Don't take it personally. This is just how things are." She had no idea how wrong she was. That night, as I drove home, I didn't feel humiliated anymore. I felt clear. Clear about who they were. Clear about what they thought of me. And most importantly, clear about what I needed to do next. Because what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the version of me sitting quietly at that table was already gone. They believed humiliation ends people. They never consider what it creates. And while they slept comfortably in their expensive home, convinced they'd put me back in my place, I was already setting something in motion that would unravel everything they thought was untouchable. 1 week later, they would learn that underestimating me was the most expensive mistake of their lives. The week after that dinner passed quietly on the surface, but underneath it was anything but calm. While they went back to their routines, meetings, brunches, small talk about investments and appearances, I was finalizing decisions I had been postponing for years. The truth was simple. I had never been insignificant, just invisible by choice. I'd stayed quiet because silence kept me underestimated. And being underestimated is powerful when you know exactly where the pressure points are. What they never bothered to learn about me was what I actually did for a living. For the past 6 years, I hadn't just been working a regular job. I was a senior risk consultant for a private equity firm that specialized in distressed assets companies, properties and portfolios sitting on weak legal foundations. My job wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy, but it involved details most people ignored. Ownership structures, debt chains, compliance loopholes, and unresolved liabilities buried deep in paperwork no one thought to reread. And Laura's family? They were sitting on a mountain of problems they thought money had buried. 3 days after the dinner, I pulled files I hadn't reviewed in a while, not out of revenge, but clarity. Their real estate holdings, their hospitality group, their family trust. Every time I had raised a concern in the past, they brushed it off. You worry too much. You don't understand how big money works. They were wrong. Big money works precisely because small rules are ignored until someone enforces them. On Thursday morning, I made a single call to my firm. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. I presented the data. The numbers spoke louder than any emotion I could have shown at that dinner table. By Friday, due diligence teams were deployed. Lara texted me that evening. Hey, random question, do you know why some auditors are asking about our properties? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. No idea, probably routine. It wasn't routine. By Monday, their primary lender froze 2 credit lines pending investigation. A zoning issue surfaced on their flagship property one. They temporarily bypassed years ago. A silent partner pulled out after discovering irregular transfers. Then came the notices. Not dramatic, not loud, just official. Methodical, final. They scrambled. Lawyers were called, meetings were held, voices were raised. But panic doesn't fix foundations already cracked. Laura called me late that night, her voice different this time. Not confident, not amused. Do you know what's happening to us? She asked. I told the truth calmly. Yes. There was a pause. Then, did you have something to do with this? I thought back to that dinner. The laughter. The glass raised at my expense. The certainty in their voices when they decided who I was. I didn't do anything to you, I said. I just stopped protecting you. By the end of the week, properties were listed for emergency sale. Accounts were audited. The family trust so proudly mentioned at every gathering was exposed as fragile, over-leveraged, and mismanaged. What they owned didn't disappear overnight. It collapsed piece by piece, the way things do when they've been held up by arrogance instead of structure. They tried calling again. Apologies replaced jokes. Explanations replaced insults. We didn't mean it like that. You know how family is. You're taking this too far. That this was never about the dinner. That was just the moment they made it clear they didn't see me as family, only as something beneath them. Consequences don't need anger. They only need truth and timing. The last message I received from Lavra came weeks later. I wish we'd treated you differently. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I was done explaining my worth to people who only recognized it when it cost them everything. They invited me to dinner to humiliate me. They never imagined I was the one who understood exactly what they owned, and how easily it could all unravel. And that's the part people always forget. Power doesn't announce itself. It waits.